You didn't have to pay for a visa.
I'll stay.
That's right.
Some I come first, I didn't like it, but then after a while, it's supposed to grow up. That was one of them.
Because we had ice and now I don't
Just now, I didn't like it.
Pointed us? Okay. So now we are off to our next leg of the trip, Jaipur. And in Jaipur we are spending a couple of nights, tonight and tomorrow night. And today's agenda, when we are leaving our hotel right now, first thing we will stop just outside a World Heritage Monument called Qutub Minaret, and that is only for the photography, and we'll take a quick picture stop, photo stop there, and then we continue on our drive.
哪里？看窗外，看窗外，右边。
一个小女孩在那边跳啊。
在哪里？No no no，在这个后面。哎呦！他刚刚在表演。
And then when our daughter was born, we decided she was
For himself, celebration of his victory over India, because so many kings had been trying, so many Muslim kings had made attempts to win over India but didn't get any success until then. He was the first one to have this success, to be able to win over some parts of India and to be able to establish his kingdom over India. That is why he was very happy, very ecstatic, and he wanted to celebrate his success, and that is how he built the minaret in his name. So it is called Qutub Minaret. On his name, Qutubuddin Aibak was his name, so it is called Qutub Minaret. Okay?
他们不吃牛肉，牛根不跟田的。啊？他们牛根不跟田，公不工作的，还是供起来像神一样。
牛好像跟神一样不工作。
是吗？那神一样还在这里吃垃圾。
昨天我们看到一只牛车跑得好快，一只老牛。哎，我看到，对，跑得很快。
An industrial state from an agricultural state, and very soon it emerged as a very upcoming industrial and affluent state, because it was just neighboring, attached to the city of Delhi. So all this, you can see the new shopping malls and the new buildings and hotels and apartments. All this has come up in the last 15 years only, just 15 years.
New emerging
Some information about, as I said earlier, history of India earlier. I spoke about India from different angles, but I had left the historical aspect because that is quite detailed by itself. Now it is accepted by the ancient historians the world over that India is one of the ancient civilizations in the world. According to the ancient historians, anywhere in the world there are 5 the ancient civilizations in the world, and they are Greek, the first is Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Greek, Chinese, and Indus Valley civilization. These are 5 the ancient civilizations of the world, now accepted by the historians the world over. As far as the archaeological evidences to the Western world is concerned, the oldest one goes back is the Mesopotamian civilization from almost 4000 to 4500 BC. Egyptian is also from around somewhere 3000 BC. Chinese and Indian. Let's talk a little bit about Greek. Greek is a little after these two, but Chinese and Indian, Western world has not spoken much about it. Okay, let me tell you something about these interesting squares, these little townships. These are like splash of colors. When you look at these little, intersections, they are so beautiful. They are splash of colors. And now we are already in the state of Rajasthan. So the women in this state are known to be dressing very colorfully, bright colors, red and orange and green and yellow and blue. And so when you look at some of these city squares and intersections, they are like so beautiful. They are splash of colors and riot of colors, all kinds of people standing. I can say very easily that Indian women are the most colorfully dressed women in the world as a whole. One or two may be dressed black and grey, but above all, if I look at the women as a whole in a country, Indian women are the most colorfully dressed women in the world. We love to dress in colors. If there's no color, life is useless. So, anyways, about Chinese and Indian civilization, the world doesn't know much because these two civilizations were very self-contained, very much hidden, and very much self-sufficient. Do not require anything from anybody else from rest of the world. Look at these two historical giants right next to each other, India and China. Both of us were quite oblivious of each other. And both of us were quite advanced in our own way, having our own medicinal system, having our own surgery system, having our own literature, science, everything of our own, but having no interaction with each other because of the giant Himalayas in between. Himalayas separated us and we were happy, we were respecting the boundary. And we had no idea something so advanced lies beyond on the other side, and that applies same thing to our counterpart, Chinese. They also had no idea that something so advanced lies beyond on this side. Anyways, Indus Valley civilization goes back to 3000 BC. From 3000 BC to 1500 BC is the era of Indus Valley civilization, and this was we came to know about it through the help of British archaeologists and historians. One thing we have to attribute to the British historians the world over, that they are great lover and appreciator of history and archaeology, and because of their effort, so many places in the world, the history has come out, like Greece, Egypt, India. These places, we know about their history because of the effort done by the British historians and the archaeologists. It is a different story that if you look at the British museums, they are full of stuff from Greece, Egypt and India. You hardly have anything British about those museums. Everything is from all over, but at least they made an attempt to get the history out. So they were laying down the railroad tracks in the area of Pakistan, what we have Pakistan now, in the early 1900s. So the people who were involved in the railroad construction, they stumbled upon huge mounds. Like I'm talking about 50 feet, 60 feet, 100 feet mounds. They were not small mounds. So when they looked at those mounds and they saw, they had no idea what it is all about. And since they were so huge, they could not lay the railroad tracks over them. They had to bypass the whole thing and then lay down the railroad tracks. How many could they bypass? There were hundreds of them. So it got reported to the British authorities. And eventually it went to the higher authorities, and in the end it went to the Viceroy in Delhi. And then the Viceroy gave his instructions to look into it as to what those mounds are. And then the excavation started. And then they came to know that, oh my God, there was a whole layer of civilization, urbanized, very urban civilization that existed here. And then they did the carbon dating technology. And then they came to know that it was all like almost from 3000 BC. How could we know that it was an urban civilization? It was a complete laid out, planned city. Cities, the streets were 90 feet wide. The homes situated by the side of the streets were very organized and at regular spaces. Every home had a well, had a staircase, and the most astonishing fact of all that, they had a well-developed drainage system. There was a main drain below the street, and each and every household was connected by a drainage system, a side drain. And we are talking about 3000 BC. So that was astonishing and mind-boggling to them. The main difference with the Egyptians and the Greek civilization was that nothing was gigantic. Like in Egypt, they found huge temples at Luxor and the Valley of Kings and the Queens, and the pyramids. In Greece also, Parthenon and all that. Nothing of that sort, of that magnanimity they could find here in India, in Indus Valley. Everything was small, small, small. No palace, no temple, no statues. So that itself proves the fact that maybe there was no monarchy. Maybe there was no Maharaja, kings or the emperors. So they must be having people's representatives. Somebody amongst the people must be representing them, in some way or the other. So it was very interesting. And since it was all by the side of Indus, in the valley of Indus, so it is called the Indus Valley Civilization. And the era goes from 3000 to 1500. Around 1500 BC, we have been able to establish the era for a very, very important event in the Indian history, and that is called the invasion of the Aryans. Now, Aryans, what is this word? And how have we come to this word in the Indian history? It is a Sanskrit word for us, and Sanskrit is a member of Indo-European family of languages. And the major members in the Indo-European family is Latin, Sanskrit, and ancient Persian. And I'm talking ancient Persian, pre-Islamic Persia, when the people who lived there were called Zoroastrians, Parsis. Now those Parsis are in India. They took refuge coming from Iran when they were persecuted by Islamic people in Iran. When Islam came into Iran, so they got persecuted and they came to India to take refuge, because India has always been known as a very liberal and tolerant country. So they came to India, and still they are living in India, the Parsis. So they were originally Zoroastrians. Anyways, those days when Zoroastrians lived in Iran, and Latin and Sanskrit, these languages were the members of Indo-European family of languages. I'll give you an example as to how Latin and Sanskrit are connected with each other. In Latin-derived languages, like for example, English has come out of Latin, and if we put a suffix or a prefix of a before a word in English, it becomes a negative of that word. For example, theist, atheist, which means negative of theist. And similarly, in Hindi, since we don't say a, we say a. If I put a prefix of a before a word, it becomes a negative of that word. Like for example, we had a very popular emperor called Ashoka in India, 2nd century BC. The word shoka, S-H-O-K-A, means to be sad, to be unhappy. And if we add a into it, ashoka, which means non-unhappy, which means happy. So, adding an or a means the same, because we are all members of Indo-European family of languages. Another example of connection between Sanskrit and Latin languages. In Spanish, for the word father, we say padre, right? For mother, matri. Similarly, in Sanskrit, for the word father, pitri. For mother, matri. So these are strange similarities between Latin languages and the Sanskrit languages. So we are all members of the same family, Indo-European family of languages. So the word Ryan, R-Y-A-N, in ancient Latin and ancient Sanskrit and ancient Persian meant citizens. Like I am a Ryan of India. You all are the